I was chopping vegetables for dinner in my cozy Denver apartment on a quiet Saturday evening when the doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone, but when I opened the door, my heart nearly stopped. Standing there was Emma, my brother Marcus's ex-girlfriend, holding an 8-month-old baby in her arms. Her eyes were red and puffy hands trembling as she clutched the child close to her chest. She looked up at me with desperation I had never seen before, and said in a shaky voice, "Gabriella, I need to talk to you about Marcus and this baby." The words hit me like ice water. But before I continue this story, can you let me know where you are watching from? Please drop a like if you have ever felt that sinking feeling when unexpected news arrives at your doorstep. And don't forget to subscribe, because what Emma was about to reveal would completely shatter everything I thought I knew about my own brother. Growing up, Marcus and I were inseparable. At 32, my brother had always been my protector, my confidant, and honestly, my hero. He was 3 years older than me, and had this way of making everything seem okay when life got tough. When our parents divorced when I was 12, Marcus was the one who held me while I cried and promised that our family might be broken, but we would always have each other. He had built a successful career as a software engineer in Seattle, and every week without fail, he would call me to check in on my life as a freelance graphic designer here in Denver. Marcus had always been the responsible one, the one our parents pointed to as an example. He was methodical, careful with his decisions, and never rushed into anything without thinking it through completely. That's why when he introduced Emma to our family 3 years ago, I knew she was special. He had dated other women before, but never brought anyone home for Thanksgiving, or talked about someone the way he talked about Emma. Emma was 27, smart as a whip, and worked at a tech startup doing marketing. She had this infectious laugh and this way of making everyone around her feel comfortable and valued. I remember thinking she was perfect for Marcus because she matched his intelligence but brought out a lighter side of him that I hadn't seen since we were kids. She would remember little details about my work projects and always asked thoughtful questions about my art. During family gatherings, she fit in seamlessly, helping our mom in the kitchen and engaging our dad in conversations about current events. For 3 years, watching them together felt like watching a fairy tale unfold. Marcus would light up when he talked about Emma's achievements at work. He would share stories about their weekend hiking trips in the Cascades, their cooking experiments in his kitchen, and their plans to travel to Europe together. I had started to wonder when he would propose because it seemed so obvious they were perfect for each other. Then about 10 months ago, everything changed. Marcus called me on a Tuesday night and I could hear the exhaustion in his voice immediately. "Emma and I broke up," he said simply, without any of his usual preamble about work or asking about my day. I was shocked, because just the week before he had mentioned they were looking at apartments together. When I asked what happened, he gave me a vague explanation that they wanted different things for the future, and that they had grown apart. He sounded hurt, but resigned, like someone who had made peace with a difficult decision. I tried to get more details, but Marcus shut down the conversation quickly. "It's for the best, Gabby," he said, using my childhood nickname. "Sometimes people just realize they're not compatible long-term." Over the next few weeks, he seemed to throw himself into work, mentioning extra projects and late nights at the office. I worried about him, but he insisted he was handling the breakup fine and didn't want to dwell on it. About 2 months ago, Marcus's mood had completely shifted. He sounded lighter on our weekly calls, almost excited about something. That's when he told me about Sarah, a pediatrician he had met through a mutual friend. "She's amazing, Gabby," he said, and I could hear the smile in his voice. "Smart, funny, and we have so much in common." He talked about their dates to art museums and fancy restaurants, how she made him laugh, and how refreshing it was to be with someone who shared his vision for the future. I was happy for him, of course, but something felt off about how quickly he seemed to have moved on from Emma. 3 years is a long time to be with someone, and the way he talked about Sarah made it sound like Emma had never existed at all. When I mentioned this concern, Marcus brushed it off, saying that when something is truly over, it's easier to move forward than to look back. Now, looking at Emma standing in my doorway with a baby in her arms, all those conversations came flooding back to me. I invited her inside immediately, noting how thin she looked and how her usually perfect appearance seemed disheveled. I made her a cup of chamomile tea while she settled the baby, who had the most beautiful dark hair and bright eyes that reminded me of someone I could not quite place. "This is Lucas," Emma said softly, adjusting the baby's blanket. "He's 8 months old." She looked up at me with eyes full of pain and continued, "Gabriella, this baby is Marcus's son, but your brother doesn't know he exists." The words hung in the air between us like a bomb waiting to explode. I felt my knees go weak and I had to sit down on my couch to process what she had just told me. Emma explained that she discovered she was pregnant about a month after she and Marcus broke up. She said she had tried desperately to reach him, calling his phone multiple times, only to discover he had changed his number. She attempted to contact him through social media, but found that he had blocked her on every platform. "I even went to his office building," she said, tears starting to form in her eyes. "But the security guard said he had moved to a different location, and they couldn't give me any information." Faced with no way to reach Marcus, and a pregnancy she had not planned, Emma made the decision to have the baby and raise him as a single mother. She had moved back to her hometown in Colorado to be closer to her family, and had been working remotely for a smaller company while caring for Lucas. "I never stopped hoping I would find a way to tell Marcus about his son," she said, bouncing the baby gently as he started to fuss. Emma explained that she was in Denver because her mother had fallen seriously ill and was in the hospital. She needed someone to watch Lucas while she spent long hours at her mother's bedside, and she had remembered that I lived here from conversations we had during family gatherings years ago. "I know this is overwhelming," she said, "but I was hoping you could help me get in touch with Marcus. Lucas deserves to know his father, and Marcus deserves to know he has a son." I looked at this tiny baby, studying his features more carefully. The resemblance to Marcus was subtle, but unmistakable, especially around the eyes and the shape of his forehead. My heart ached for Emma, who had clearly been struggling alone for months, and for this innocent child who had no idea about the complicated family dynamics surrounding his birth. At the same time, I felt confused and upset with Marcus for changing his contact information so completely that Emma couldn't reach him. After Emma left that evening with promises to return the next day, I immediately tried to call Marcus. The phone rang several times before going to voicemail, which was unusual because he almost always answered when I called. I left a message asking him to call me back about something important, trying to keep my voice steady despite the turmoil I was feeling inside. I sent him a text message as well. "Marcus, I need to talk to you about Emma and something very important. Please call me as soon as you get this." I spent the next 2 hours pacing around my apartment, cleaning nervously and checking my phone every few minutes. The whole situation felt surreal, like something that happened to other people, not to my responsible, thoughtful brother. When Marcus finally called me back around 10 o'clock that night, his voice sounded tense and guarded in a way I had never heard before. "What's this about Emma?" he asked without even saying hello first. "Why are you asking about her?" I explained that she had come to see me and that we needed to talk about something serious, but before I could mention the baby, Marcus cut me off. "Gabriella, listen to me very carefully," he said, and his tone made me feel like a child being scolded. "Emma is my past, and I don't want you getting involved in whatever drama she's trying to create. She's a liar, and she's manipulative, and she'll say anything to get attention." I was stunned by the harshness in his voice, especially since he had never spoken about Emma this way during their relationship, or even immediately after their breakup. When I tried to tell him about Lucas, Marcus became even more agitated. "Whatever she told you, it's not true," he insisted. "Emma has serious psychological problems, and she's been stalking me since we broke up. That's the real reason I changed my number and blocked her on social media. I had to protect myself from her obsessive behavior." He paused, and when he continued, his voice carried a warning tone that made my stomach turn. "Don't let her manipulate you with whatever sob story she's concocted. She's dangerous, Gabby, and I don't want her using you to get to me. The conversation ended with Marcus practically demanding that I refuse to see Emma again and warning me not to believe anything she said. After I hung up, I sat in my dark living room feeling more confused than ever. The Marcus I had just spoken to sounded nothing like the brother I had known my entire life. He sounded angry, defensive, and almost cruel in the way he spoke about someone he had once claimed to love. The next morning, Emma returned with a large folder filled with documents. She spread them out on my coffee table systematically like a lawyer presenting evidence in court. The first thing she showed me was a series of ultrasound photos, each clearly labeled with dates that corresponded perfectly with her timeline. The images showed the progression of her pregnancy, and in several of them, I could see Marcus's name written in Emma's handwriting with little hearts next to it. Next, she produced Lucas's birth certificate. There, in official black and white, was Marcus's full name, listed as the father. I put his name on the birth certificate because I knew he was the father, Emma explained. I had hoped by the time Lucas was born, I would have found a way to contact Marcus, and we could work things out even if we weren't together romantically. Emma then pulled out her phone and showed me screenshots of text messages between her and Marcus from the last weeks of their relationship. Reading them made my heart sink because they painted a completely different picture than what Marcus had told me. In these messages, Marcus was talking about their future together, discussing the possibility of marriage, and expressing how much he loved Emma. The conversations were romantic, intimate, and full of plans for their life together. "This is from just 2 weeks before we broke up," Emma said, showing me a message where Marcus had written about wanting to start a family someday and how Emma would make an amazing mother. He told me he could see us growing old together. We had talked about having kids, and he seemed excited about the possibility. Emma explained that Marcus's behavior changed dramatically and suddenly. One day we were talking about moving in together, and the next day he was cold and distant, she said. When I asked him what was wrong, he said he had been thinking about his priorities and realized he wasn't ready for the kind of commitment I wanted. But it felt like he had become a completely different person overnight. The breakup conversation, according to Emma, was brief and brutal. Marcus had told her that he needed to focus on his career and that he thought they wanted different things from life. When Emma tried to discuss their future and whether they could work through their differences, Marcus shut down the conversation entirely. "He said it would be better if we made a clean break," Emma recalled. "He asked me to delete his number and said he would do the same. I thought he meant we needed space, not that he was planning to disappear completely." When Emma discovered she was pregnant a month later, she had tried every possible way to contact Marcus. She called his work only to be told that he was no longer at that location. She reached out to mutual friends, but found that Marcus had told them they had ended things badly and asked them not to share his contact information with her. "I felt like I was being erased from his life systematically," Emma said, "like our 3 years together had never happened." I found myself studying Emma's face as she told her story, looking for any signs of deception or manipulation that Marcus had warned me about. Instead, I saw a woman who appeared exhausted, heartbroken, and desperate for answers. Her story was consistent, her documentation was thorough, and her emotions seemed genuine. Most importantly, when I looked at baby Lucas, the resemblance to Marcus was becoming more apparent every time I saw him. When I confronted Marcus about the ultrasound photos and birth certificate, his response was explosive. "She's forged those documents," he shouted over the phone. "People can fake anything these days, Gabriella. She's trying to trap me with false paternity claims because she's obsessed with me." His accusations seemed wild and desperate, nothing like the measured, logical responses I was used to from my brother. I pressed him about the text messages Emma had shown me, and Marcus's explanation grew even more concerning. "She probably manipulated those screenshots too," he claimed. "You can't trust anything she shows you. This is exactly the kind of elaborate scheme I was warning you about." "She's sick, Gabby, and now she's dragging you into her delusions." The more Marcus talked, the less credible he sounded. His explanations were becoming increasingly paranoid and extreme, while Emma's evidence continued to stack up in her favor. I realized that one of them was lying to me, and despite my lifelong loyalty to Marcus, I was beginning to suspect it was not Emma. Determined to get to the bottom of the situation, I decided to reach out to Sarah Marcus's new girlfriend. I had never met her personally, but Marcus had mentioned her last name during one of our conversations, and I was able to find her contact information through social media. When I called her, I was honest about who I was, and explained that there was a family situation I needed to discuss with her. Sarah was surprised to hear from me, but she was willing to talk. When I mentioned Emma's name, there was a long pause before Sarah responded. "Marcus told me about Emma," she said carefully. He said she was his ex-girlfriend who had become obsessed with him after their breakup. He described her as mentally unstable and said she had been stalking him and making his life difficult. I asked Sarah to tell me everything Marcus had shared about Emma, and her account was disturbing. According to Marcus, Emma had been calling him constantly after their breakup, showing up at his apartment unannounced, and even following him on dates with other women. Marcus had told Sarah that Emma couldn't accept that their relationship was over and had been harassing him for months. Marcus said he had to get a restraining order against her, Sarah continued. He told me she had threatened to hurt herself if he didn't take her back, and that she had been spreading lies about him to their mutual friends. He made her sound really dangerous, honestly. But as Sarah continued talking, I could hear doubt creeping into her voice. "Although," she said slowly, "there have been a few times when Marcus got really tense about getting text messages or phone calls from unknown numbers. He would get this panicked look on his face and immediately delete the messages without reading them. When I asked him about it, he said it was probably Emma trying to contact him from different phones." Sarah also mentioned that Marcus had insisted they keep their relationship very private, especially on social media. "He said he didn't want Emma to find out about me and start targeting me with her harassment," Sarah explained. "But now that I'm talking to you, some of his behavior seems odd. Like, why would someone who supposedly moved on from a toxic relationship be so paranoid about his ex finding out about his new girlfriend?" When I told Sarah about Lucas and Emma's claims about Marcus being the father, Sarah went completely silent. Finally, she spoke in a whisper. "Gabriella, Marcus told me that one of the reasons he broke up with Emma was because she was pressuring him to have children and he wasn't ready. But he never mentioned anything about her being pregnant or having a baby." The next day, Emma returned with what she called her final piece of evidence. She handed me an official-looking document that made my blood run cold. It was a DNA test result conducted by a certified laboratory, clearly showing that Marcus was the biological father of Lucas with a 99.7% certainty. "I had this done 2 months ago," Emma explained. "I used hair from Marcus's hairbrush that I still had at my apartment, along with Lucas's saliva sample. I know it sounds crazy, but I needed to be absolutely sure before I tried to contact him again." The test results were undeniable, printed on official letterhead with proper certification and signatures. Emma also showed me copies of emails from a family law attorney. The emails detailed her attempts to establish paternity and secure child support for Lucas. According to the correspondence, Emma's lawyer had tried to contact Marcus through his employer and had sent certified letters to his last known address, all of which had gone unanswered or been returned as undeliverable. The most heartbreaking piece of evidence Emma shared was a recording she had made of her final phone conversation with Marcus just days before he changed his number. In the recording, Emma's voice was shaky as she told Marcus she was pregnant and needed to talk to him. Marcus's response was cold and brutal. "That kid isn't mine," he said flatly. "And even if it was, I never asked for this. Don't call me again." When Emma tried to explain that she wasn't asking him to get back together, just to acknowledge his child, Marcus's voice became threatening. "If you keep harassing me about this fictional baby, I'll make sure everyone knows what kind of person you really are," he said. "I'll destroy your reputation and your career. Leave me alone, Emma. This is your problem, not mine." Listening to that recording was like hearing a stranger speak with my brother's voice. The Marcus I knew would never speak to anyone that way, let alone to a woman he had once claimed to love. The cruelty in his tone made me feel physically sick, and I could see Emma reliving the pain of that conversation as we listened to it together. That evening, I called Marcus for what I knew would be our final conversation about this situation. I was done with his lies and excuses, and I confronted him directly with the DNA test results. For a long moment, he said nothing, and I could hear his breathing getting heavier on the other end of the line. Finally, Marcus spoke, and his voice was different than I had ever heard it before. Gone was the defensive anger replaced by a cold resignation that scared me more than his previous outbursts. "All right, fine," he said. "The kid is mine. Are you happy now?" When I asked him how he could have abandoned his own child, Marcus's response revealed a side of him I never knew existed. "I never wanted to be a father, Gabriella," he said matter-of-factly. "My career is finally taking off. I'm making serious money and I have my whole life planned out. A baby doesn't fit into that plan, and I'm not going to let Emma trap me into a life I don't want." I tried to reason with him, reminding him about the values our parents had taught us and the importance of taking responsibility for our actions. Marcus laughed a sound that made my skin crawl. "You sound just like Emma," he said mockingly. "Always talking about responsibility and doing the right thing. The right thing for me is protecting my future. Emma chose to have that baby so she can choose to raise it." When I told Marcus that I was going to help Emma pursue legal action against him, he exploded with rage. "You're choosing her over your own brother," he screamed. "I'm your family, Gabriella, your blood, and you're going to betray me for some woman you barely know." His words stung, but they also clarified everything for me. "You're right, Marcus," I said calmly. "You are my brother, but that baby is your son, and Emma deserves support. If you won't do the right thing voluntarily, then yes, I'll help her force you to do it legally." Marcus's final words before hanging up on me were, "You've just lost your brother, Gabriella. I hope that baby was worth it." The line went dead, and I sat holding my phone, feeling like I was mourning the death of someone who was still alive. The next morning, I woke up with a clarity I hadn't felt in weeks. I called Emma and told her that I believed her completely and wanted to help her in any way I could. Together, we drove to the office of Patricia Hernandez, a family law attorney who specialized in paternity and child support cases. Ms. Hernandez reviewed Emma's documentation and confirmed that she had a very strong case. With the DNA test results, birth certificate, and evidence of Marcus's acknowledgement of paternity, she was confident they could secure a child support order quickly. "The challenge," she explained, "will be locating your brother and serving him with papers. If he's been avoiding contact deliberately, he might try to hide his assets or employment information." I provided Ms. Hernandez with Marcus's current employer information, his address in Seattle, and even Sarah's contact details in case she could provide additional information about Marcus's whereabouts. Emma was hesitant about involving Sarah, but I assured her that Sarah deserved to know the truth about the man she was dating. Within 2 weeks, Marcus was served with paternity and child support papers at his office. According to Ms. Hernandez, he initially tried to contest the paternity claim, but when presented with the DNA evidence, his lawyer advised him to negotiate a settlement rather than fight a case he could not win. During this process, I made one of the most difficult decisions of my adult life. I called my parents, who had retired to a small beach town in Florida, and told them everything that had happened. My mother cried when I described meeting Lucas for the first time, and my father was furious with Marcus for abandoning his responsibilities. "That boy is our grandson," my mother said firmly. "Marcus may have made his choice, but that doesn't mean we have to make the same one." My parents immediately began making plans to visit Denver to meet Lucas, and they also made the difficult decision to cut off the financial support they had been providing to Marcus for his condo down payment. The legal proceedings moved quickly once Marcus realized he couldn't win. He was ordered to pay $2,000 per month in child support retroactive to Lucas's birth. Additionally, he was required to maintain health insurance for Lucas and contribute to a college savings account. The judge was particularly stern with Marcus during the hearing, noting that his attempt to avoid responsibility for nearly a year showed a disturbing lack of character. Sarah called me 2 days after the court hearing. She had broken up with Marcus immediately after learning about Lucas and wanted to apologize for doubting Emma's story. "I feel terrible that I believed his lies about Emma being unstable," she said. "Now I realize I was dating someone who could lie so convincingly about something so important. It makes me question everything he ever told me." Emma decided to stay in Denver permanently after her mother recovered from her illness. She found a position with a marketing firm downtown that offered excellent benefits and flexible working arrangements for single parents. I helped her find a beautiful apartment just 15 minutes from my place, and Lucas seemed to thrive in his new environment. Watching Emma rebuild her life was inspiring. She had spent almost a year carrying the burden of single parenthood alone, dealing with the pain of Marcus's rejection while trying to provide for Lucas. Now, with the financial security of child support and a supportive network of friends, she began to blossom again. Her confidence returned, her smile came back, and she started making plans for her future that went beyond just surviving day to day. 6 months after our first meeting, Emma introduced me to David, a 34-year-old elementary school teacher she had met at a parent-child music class. David was kind, patient, and completely smitten with both Emma and Lucas. Watching him gently help Lucas with his first steps and hearing him talk about Lucas as "our little guy" made my heart swell with happiness for both of them. My own healing process took longer than I had expected. The betrayal I felt over Marcus's behavior went deeper than just disappointment in his choices. I had lost my childhood hero, the person I had looked up to my entire life, and discovered that my perception of his character had been completely wrong. I started seeing a therapist to work through my feelings of anger, grief, and confusion about how someone I thought I knew so well could be capable of such cruelty. Through therapy, I learned to separate my love for the brother I thought I had from my disgust with the man Marcus actually was. I grieved the loss of our relationship while also recognizing that cutting ties with him was the right choice for my own mental health and moral compass. Some people, I realized, reveal their true selves only when faced with difficult circumstances, and Marcus had shown me exactly who he was when tested. The most unexpected gift of this entire experience was gaining Emma and Lucas as family. Emma became one of my closest friends, someone I could talk to about anything, and who understood the complexities of family relationships. Lucas, meanwhile, became the light of my life. Being his aunt meant everything to me, and I loved watching him grow from a quiet baby into a curious, joyful toddler who called me Gaga and ran to me with arms outstretched whenever I visited. My parents flew in from Florida 3 months after the court settlement and fell instantly in love with Lucas. Watching my father teach Lucas to play peekaboo and seeing my mother rock him to sleep reminded me that family isn't just about blood relationships. It's about the people who show up for each other, who choose love over convenience, and who prioritize what's right over what's easy. Marcus sent me a few text messages over the months following our confrontation. Most were angry accusations about how I had destroyed his relationship and ruined his reputation. A few were attempts at reconciliation, asking if we could put this behind us and go back to how things were. I never responded to any of them. Some bridges, I had learned, are meant to be burned. The final message I received from Marcus came on Lucas's first birthday. It was a simple text that said, "I hope you're happy with the choice you made." I looked at the message while sitting in Emma's living room watching Lucas demolish his birthday cake while surrounded by people who loved him unconditionally. David was wiping frosting off Lucas's face while Emma laughed and took pictures. My parents were there along with Emma's mother and several friends we had made in the past year. I deleted Marcus's message without responding and put my phone away. I had made my choice, and I was happier with it than I had ever imagined possible. Sometimes the most important decisions we make require us to choose between what's easy and what's right, between loyalty and justice, between the family we're born with and the family we create. Lucas is now 18 months old, walking confidently and saying new words every day. Emma and David are planning to get married next spring, and David has already started the process to legally adopt Lucas. My parents visit every few months and spoil their grandson shamelessly. I've built a successful freelance business and recently moved to a larger apartment with a guest room specifically designed for Lucas's visits. The truth about Marcus broke me temporarily, but it also freed me to become someone I'm more proud of. I learned that standing up for what's right sometimes means standing alone, but it also means you can sleep peacefully at night, knowing you chose compassion over convenience. Most importantly, I learned that sometimes the most beautiful families are the ones we choose to build, rather than the ones we're born into. So, what do you think about this situation? Have you ever had to make a difficult choice between family loyalty and doing what's right? I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please give it a like and share it with someone who might need to hear about the importance of standing up for others, even when it's difficult. Don't forget to subscribe for more real-life stories about family relationships and the complicated choices we all face. Thank you for listening to my story, and I hope it reminded you that sometimes the hardest decisions lead to the most beautiful outcomes.